The first thing Daniel noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that creeps up on you when something is wrong and you don't yet know what it is. He stood frozen on his small front porch, keys dangling from his fingers, while the late afternoon sun dipped low behind the maple trees lining the street. Then it happened. A soft laugh. A quick step closer. And before his brain could catch up, someone kissed him on the cheek. Across the low wooden fence, someone else saw it too. And that single moment would quietly flip all of their lives upside down. Daniel Parker was 38, a single dad, and the kind of man people described as steady. Not exciting. Not flashy. Just dependable. Since his wife Emily had passed away 3 years earlier after a sudden illness, his life had shrunk into a tight, careful routine built around his 8-year-old son, Noah. Wake up early. Make breakfast. Pack lunches. Drive to school. Work at the auto parts warehouse. Pick Noah up. Homework. Dinner. Bedtime stories. Repeat. The house next door was where Sarah lived. Sarah Whitmore had moved in about a year after Emily's death. She was in her mid-30s, worked from home as a freelance editor, and had a calm presence that made people feel like they could breathe easier just standing near her. She had a teenage daughter, Lily, who split time between Sarah's house and her father's. From the moment Daniel and Sarah met over a shared mailbox mishap, something gentle and unspoken settled between them. They weren't close at first. Just neighbors. Friendly waves. Small talk about the weather, school schedules, and lawn care. But over time, their lives naturally overlapped. Noah and Lily occasionally kicked a soccer ball in the yard. Sarah sometimes watched Noah if Daniel got stuck at work. Daniel fixed a broken gate for Sarah without being asked. It was simple. Comfortable. And quietly, without either of them saying it out loud, it started to mean more. Sarah noticed things. She noticed how Daniel always put Noah first, even when he looked exhausted. How he spoke about Emily with respect and sadness, never bitterness. How he listened, really listened, when Sarah talked. She hadn't planned on developing feelings. She told herself she was just being friendly. Just being kind. But feelings don't always wait for permission. Daniel noticed things too. How Sarah remembered Noah's favorite snacks. How she checked in on Daniel on hard days without prying. How she smiled, not loudly, but warmly, like she saw him, not just as a widower or a tired dad, but as a man. Still, nothing happened. Daniel wasn't ready. Or at least, that's what he told himself. Then came Claire. Claire was Daniel's co-worker. She had transferred to his department a few months earlier. She was confident, outgoing, and very different from Emily. Where Emily had been quiet and thoughtful, Claire was bold and spontaneous. She laughed easily, touched people's arms when she spoke, and said exactly what was on her mind. At first, Daniel kept his distance. He wasn't looking for anything. But Claire was persistent in a light, playful way that didn't feel threatening. She asked about Noah. She brought coffee to work. She teased Daniel about being too serious. One evening, after a particularly rough day when Noah had gotten into trouble at school and Daniel felt like he was failing at everything, Claire offered to walk him to his car. "You don't have to do this all alone, you know," she said gently. Daniel shrugged. "I'm used to it." "Used to doesn't mean it's right," Claire replied. He didn't answer, but the words stuck. Over the next few weeks, they talked more. Nothing dramatic. Just conversations. Claire listened too, in her own way. And for the first time in years, Daniel felt something loosen inside him. A small part of him wondered if it was okay to move forward. If it was okay to feel something new. He didn't tell Sarah about Claire. Not because he was hiding anything, but because it didn't feel like something that needed explaining. They were neighbors, not anything else. At least, that's what he told himself. The afternoon it happened, Daniel had just come home from work. Claire had offered him a ride because his car was in the shop. She walked him up to his porch, chatting about something trivial, and before he could react, she leaned in and kissed him on the cheek. It was brief. Innocent even. But it was visible. Sarah had been standing in her yard, watering her plants. She froze when she saw it. Her heart dropped in a way she hadn't expected or prepared for. It wasn't anger at first. It was shock. Then confusion. Then a sharp, unwelcome ache. She told herself she had no right to feel that way. Daniel was free. He didn't owe her anything. She turned back to her garden, but the image replayed in her mind over and over. That night, Sarah barely slept. Jealousy is a strange thing. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. It asks quiet questions that hurt more than loud accusations. Sarah found herself wondering who the woman was. How long it had been going on. Whether Daniel had ever seen her the way she saw him. The next few days were awkward. Sarah avoided Daniel. She took longer routes to her car. She stayed inside when she heard his door open. Daniel noticed, of course. He noticed everything. But he didn't understand. When he finally caught her one morning by the mailbox, he asked, "Hey, did I do something?" Sarah hesitated. Her instinct was to say no. To smile and wave it off. But something inside her was tired of pretending. "No," she said carefully. "You didn't do anything wrong." "But," Daniel pressed. She sighed. "I just saw you the other day. With someone." Daniel's face flushed with understanding. "Oh. That. It's not. You don't have to explain," Sarah interrupted quickly. "I'm your neighbor, not your—" She stopped herself. "I just needed a little space." Daniel nodded slowly, but something in his chest tightened. He hadn't expected to feel disappointed. He hadn't expected to care. Over the next week, things shifted. Claire continued to show interest. She invited Daniel to dinner. She talked about future plans casually, as if they were already a couple. Daniel liked her, but something felt off. Not wrong. Just rushed. At the same time, the distance with Sarah felt heavy. The easy comfort they'd shared was gone, replaced by polite smiles and short conversations. Noah noticed it too. "Why doesn't Sarah come over anymore?" Noah asked one evening. Daniel didn't know how to answer. Then everything came to a head one Saturday afternoon. Daniel had agreed to take Noah to a community fair. Claire offered to come along. Sarah and Lily were already there when they arrived. The moment was awkward, tense, and impossible to ignore. Claire, sensing the shift, held Daniel's hand. Not aggressively, but deliberately. Sarah saw it. And something inside her finally broke. Later that evening, after the fair ended and the kids went home, Sarah knocked on Daniel's door. Her hands were shaking. "We need to talk," she said. They sat at the kitchen table. The same table where Sarah had once helped Noah with homework. The same table where Daniel had laughed more than he realized. "I'm jealous," Sarah said quietly. "And I hate that I am. I don't want to be that person. But I care about you." Daniel stared at her, stunned. "You do?" "I didn't plan to," she continued. "I didn't think it was fair. You've been through so much. I didn't want to add pressure. But seeing her with you, it hurt." Daniel felt his breath catch. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he spoke slowly. "I thought I was ready to move on," he said. "And maybe part of me is. But I realized something these past few days." Sarah looked up, afraid and hopeful at the same time. "I don't feel calm with Claire," Daniel admitted. "I feel distracted. Rushed. Like I'm trying to convince myself of something." "And with me?" Sarah asked softly. Daniel met her eyes. "With you, I feel like I can breathe." The silence that followed was heavy, but not painful. "What shocked me," Daniel said later, "wasn't that you were jealous. It was that I was relieved." They didn't kiss that night. They didn't rush into anything. Instead, they talked. Really talked. About Emily. About fear. About guilt. About hope. The next day, Daniel had an honest conversation with Claire. It wasn't easy, but it was kind. Claire was disappointed, but she understood. She deserved someone fully present. Weeks passed. Slowly, carefully, Daniel and Sarah took small steps forward. Coffee on the porch. Walks with the kids. laughter returning to familiar spaces. One evening, as the sun set just like it had that first day, Sarah stood by the fence and smiled at Daniel. "This time," she said, "if someone kisses you, I hope it's me." Daniel smiled back. "Me too." The moral of the story is simple but powerful. Unspoken feelings don't disappear just because we ignore them, and jealousy isn't always a flaw. It's often a sign pointing us toward the truth. When we face our emotions honestly and communicate with courage, we make room for real connection, healing, and love to grow in the right way.